Hey guys, what's up? This is Ben Golliver for SB Nation. We're here to talk about the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, clearly, the East wasn't the deepest of conferences this year, and so finally things are starting to get good out there. Miami Heat versus Indiana Pacers, two of the best teams all season long, and really in the playoffs, clearly the two best teams. Miami has kind of had a cakewalk to get here. I mean, they haven't really played anybody. The sub-500 Milwaukee Bucks didn't stand a chance. The injury-ravaged Chicago Bulls just couldn't keep up as guys ended up in the hospital and just weren't available on the court to hang in there with Miami's big three. Indiana's side, it's been a fairly easy road too. At least early, they took care of the Atlanta Hawks, no problem. And then they, convincingly defeated the New York Knicks, the other team that was sort of in contention for the title of best Eastern Conference team besides Miami in the second round. They took it in 6 games and really exerted their will throughout almost the entire series against the Knicks. And that should give them a lot of confidence heading in here against Miami, which is a team that sort of looked unbeatable all season long. In terms of the series history between these two teams, Indiana is one of the few teams in the NBA that can actually look in the mirror and say, hey, we have a chance against Miami. They don't actually have to talk themselves into it. They don't have to have a sense of false bravado to believe that they belong, because twice this season they've beaten Miami, and twice this season they've beaten Miami by double digits. Not only that, if you go back to last year's playoffs, Indiana was able to get 2 wins in the conference semifinals against the Heat, and they potentially could have pushed that series even further had Dwayne Wade not gotten his knee taken care of, and things fell together nicely for the Pacers in Chris Bosh's absence, with LeBron James stepping up and putting together really some miraculous performances there in the 2012 playoffs. So if you're Indiana, you're looking at it like, hey, we understand Miami's 44-3 since February 1st, but at the same time, we've beaten them twice this season. We beat them twice last season. We deserve to be here, and we're ready to do it. And I think that's the right attitude that Indiana should take into the series. And they're one of the few teams, like I said, in the NBA who can make those kinds of claims. In terms of the matchups of what you're looking at here, Indiana plays such great team defense that, almost the number one matchup is LeBron versus Indiana's team defense, right? I mean, no single person anywhere is going to be able to stop them, but they've got a great wing defender in Paul George who's going to give him fits, make him work. And then they've got a great center who protects the paint, protects the rim in Roy Hibbert, who's going to be your backline defense. They've got, all sorts of other physical players, up and down their lineup, whether it's even a point guard, George Hill is fairly physical for point guard, all the way up to David West, who's one of the most physical power forwards in the NBA. Those guys surely are going to be getting some fouls in on LeBron one way or another. And they've also got a hard-nosed player in Lance Stevenson, who's going to try to make Dwayne Wade work for everything he can get on the wings as well. But keep in mind, again, the defense all funnels back to Hibbert. He's sort of what makes it work. He's very long, very strong, and just physically big. He takes up a lot of room, and he's really going to cut down on the number of easy looks Miami's going to find right at the rim. Now, Miami's not going to be totally discouraged by that because, frankly, LeBron James has kind of taken a back seat for his own offense during these playoffs. Last year during the playoffs, he averaged 30 points a game. So far through 2 series, he's down to really around 24 points a game. It doesn't sound like, a huge drop-off, but for LeBron, that's a fairly steep drop. And really, he's just making it up with assists. They've been moving the ball very well around to all their shooters. Of course, we know that Miami's loaded with shooters, whether it's a Ray Allen, whether it's a Mike Miller, whether it's a Shane Battier, all these three-point shooting specialists. They've really picked up a lot of the slack for Miami's offense, and they've actually pushed Miami to the number 1 most efficient offense during the playoffs. So what you're going to see is tons of ball movement, tons of ball reversals, and they're just going to try to be very patient in their half-court offense, trying to find really, the best possible shot, even if that's not a LeBron James, 1-on-5 foray into the paint. In terms of other matchups to watch, I think you've got to circle Lance Stevenson versus Dwayne Wade, like I mentioned earlier. Stevenson's coming off really the game of his life in Game 6 against the New York Knicks. He just drove by all of their guards and really, really, really put pressure on New York's defense. And they didn't have anybody inside to really handle him. Tyson Chandler wasn't able to protect the rim for New York, and Stevenson ended up having 9 baskets within 5 feet of the paint and a bunch more free throws on top of that because they just had to foul because he was getting to the hoop so easily. He ended up with a career-high 25 points. Like I said, he's a very hard-nosed, edgy player, strong. He's not huge, but he definitely is physical. And Wade's got some questions about his right knee at this point. He's expressed that there's some discomfort there. He says that the knee bone seems to be moving a little bit. Not totally sure what that means, but that's not the kind of player that you want to play against if you're Dwayne Wade. If you're in that kind of a situation, you're kind of hoping for a guy maybe who's just a spot-up shooter. You don't have to work so hard. So that's definitely going to be a matchup you want to see. How well does Wade respond? How does his knee hold up? Does he look like he's moving well? Is he going to be able to take the pounding from the overall Indiana team defense? And is he going to be playing, closer to 100%? He just really hasn't looked quite right so far in the playoffs, and I think that's the one big question mark or X factor if you're Miami is sort of what does Dwayne Wade give you compared to what you normally expect from him being an all-star, perennial all-star, and future Hall of Famer. Ultimately, when it comes down to picking this series, I tend to side with the Miami Heat fairly convincingly. I mean, they've just been so unbeatable really over the last 3+ months. We only lose 3 games total over this stretch that long. I mean, it's hard to imagine a team's going to be able to put 4 wins together against them within a 2-week span. So to me, I've got the Heat, but I'm going to give Indiana a chance here. I'm going to say it's Heat in 6. I think Indiana's going to be able to do pretty well at home, just as they did against New York. And I think they're really going to make Miami work for everything. So I'll take Heat in 6, sort of a replay of last year's playoffs, and we'll see how it shakes out. All right, guys, be sure to check out SBNation.com/NBA and subscribe to SB Nation on YouTube.